All right, let's talk about something we've all experienced. You know that feeling, right? A project starts with so much excitement, the best intentions, and it just falls apart. Have you ever just stopped and wondered why so much of our hard work, our goodwill, seems to just go nowhere? Well, we're about to dig into a really powerful idea that might just explain it all. I mean, really think about it for a second. That project at work that spirals into total chaos, or a personal goal you set that just leaves you feeling completely burned out. Even bigger things, like a social program that somehow ends up making the problem even worse. We're pouring in all this energy, all these resources, all this goodwill, and the result is the exact opposite of what we wanted. So, why does this keep happening? This is such a powerful way to think about it. Touching a wound, when the person isn't aware, is just seen as an attack. Wow. So the same action can be seen as either healing or harm. And what's the one thing that changes everything? It's awareness. And right there, that's our first big clue that having good intentions just isn't enough, not by a long shot. There's something else going on here, something much deeper. And this isn't just about those one-on-one interactions. No way. This thing scales up big time. Think about a school system, right? Its whole purpose is to educate. But somehow it ends up labeling a brilliant student as lazy and just tossing their potential aside. Or a massive company trying to grow that ends up, well, basically cannibalizing the very community it needs to survive. These aren't just random oops moments or simple mistakes. No, they're symptoms. They're all pointing to some kind of hidden law, like a fundamental rule of how things actually work. A law that if you ignore it, pretty much guarantees your best efforts are going to backfire. But, and this is the important part, if we can just understand it, we can start building things that actually work, things that last. So what is this hidden law? It really all comes down to a super simple but absolutely crucial order of operations. It's this. You have to cut first, then you apply force. You need precision before you add power. This whole idea is called precision amplification. And trust me, getting that sequence right, well, it's everything. And the core insight here is one of those things that's so simple you might miss it, but it's incredibly profound. You just can't amplify something that isn't there, right? You can't push the gas on a car that doesn't have an engine. You can't water a plant if you never planted the seed. All that energy, all that effort you're applying, it has to have something to act on. Okay, so the first piece of this puzzle is what we're calling precision. Think of this as the cut. It's the foundation, it's the design, it's the path that already exists. It's the honest-to-goodness reality on the ground before you try to do anything. You have to ask, what is the true nature of the thing I'm working with here? And then, only then, do we get to the second part. Amplification. This is all the stuff we usually focus on, right? The energy, the effort, the resources, the money. It's the force you apply. But here's the key thing to notice. Amplification doesn't create the path. It only speeds up whatever is already in motion. It's the fuel for the journey for sure, but it absolutely does not decide the destination. And this brings us to the foundational rule, the most important takeaway. Precision has to come first. It defines the path. And only after that path is defined can amplification come in to fuel it. If you get that order backward, if you just jump straight to amplification, you're literally just pouring energy into chaos. And that, my friends, is the perfect recipe for waste and failure. Okay, let's try to make this a little more concrete, right? I love this metaphor. Think about any project you're working on. Doesn't matter if it's big or small. When you're dealing with this law, you are always doing one of two things. You're either building a stable, solid house, or you're building a hazard that's just waiting to collapse. So how do you build the house? Well, it starts where any good house starts, with the foundation. That's the real origin, the actual need. Then you put up the walls. These are the aligned roles, making sure everyone knows what they're doing and is on the same page. The roof, naturally, is the outcome, the result you want. But look at that last piece, the thing that holds it all together, awareness. That's the stabilizer. And if you don't have that, the whole thing is just incredibly fragile. And really, the stakes here could not be clearer. You get all those pieces in place, the foundation, walls, roof, and awareness, and you've built a stable house. You've got stability. But if even one of those things is missing, say the foundation is shaky or the roles are a mess, you haven't just created a failed project. No, you've built a hazard, a system that is actively, right now, at risk of collapsing. Okay,
I get it, this might still feel a little bit theoretical, so let's put it into action. Let's take a look at how this law can play out in the real world. Like, how could it totally transform something as massive as our education system?
If you think about it, the traditional school model is pretty much all amplification and almost zero precision. It's like, here's a one-size-fits-all curriculum, let's just push it on everyone and hope for the best. And what happens when a student doesn't fit that mold? Well, they get slapped with a label, lazy, bored, unmotivated, and all that potential just gets thrown away. The precision amplification model completely flips that on its head. It starts by mapping the student's unique foundation first, finding their pre-cut trajectory, and then applying the resources to amplify that specific path. That's how you get real, sustainable growth. Here's a perfect case study. You've got a student who's totally disengaged. The system's response? Oh, they're lazy. That's a classic amplification failure. But what happens if we start with precision instead? We do a diagnostic, and boom, it reveals the student's foundation. It's not a lack of will, it's dyslexia. So now we have a precision pathway. Let's give them audiobooks, let's do oral exams. Suddenly, the amplification, the teaching, is working with their foundation, not fighting against it. And what happens? The student re-engages, they start to excel, and their potential is recovered. And this isn't just some nice, feel-good story. This is a real, auditable system. For schools that actually adopt this model, the target is a 20% improvement in their potential recovery rate. Think about that. That's a measurable way of tracking how much potential we're saving instead of throwing away. It just goes to show how starting with precision can literally rebuild a broken system. So what would happen if we started applying this way of thinking to everything? Okay, so we've seen how this law works on the individual level and for a whole institution like a school. So now let's take that final step. Let's zoom all the way out to the big picture. If this law is really as fundamental as it seems, what does it tell us about how we all work together, as a society? When you zoom out that far, it really boils down to one powerful, maybe even controversial rule. Participation gates entitlement. Okay, what does that actually mean? In simple terms, it means to have a claim on the results of anything a group does, you first have to actually participate under the agreed-upon rules. Thinking this way kind of reframes our entire understanding of what it even means to collaborate. And this forces us to look at a word like fairness in a totally new light. It stops being this vague, cosmic idea of perfect equality. In this model, fairness becomes an operational term. It's a specific condition inside a specific collaboration. All it means is that the rules are clear, everybody involved agrees to them, and, this part is absolutely crucial, the participants can actually challenge or contest those rules. And all of this brings us to this one really dense, cohesive thought. Collaboration is a negotiated system. A system where, yes, our fundamental rights are equal, but our desires are not. Where value has a price, and where claims on the outcome exist only for those who are participating under clear and contestable terms. Look, this law is operating all around us, all the time, whether we notice it or not. It's in our jobs, in our relationships, in our communities. So the real question, the one I want to leave you with, is this. Where in your world are you just pouring in energy without first finding the precision? Where have you built a hazard that's just waiting to become a house?